was curious first if this was is this the first fixed surveillance camera system that SPD has worked with?
Well, I don't call it a surveillance camera. Surveillance to me implies that somebody's sitting there watching it all the time. These are just cameras monitoring the general area wherever they're placed. So is it the first fixed site that we've done? Well, actually, there's multiple sites throughout the city, and this map behind me will show you where.
No, I know that. I mean, it's the first fixed system. Is this the first? I mean, I know you guys, obviously, your guys are out in the field. They've got cameras on the dash cam and everything, but is this the first stationary camera system?
No, we've actually worked with like the stadiums and things like that.
That were installed by the city?
Well, under the grant program, we are the pass-through for those systems. So we buy the cameras and the equipment, and then if they choose, they can allow us access to it at times.
Okay, so this is not the first, basically. So give me some basics, especially, how many are up now? Our part of the city is West Seattle. I counted 6 that are kind of in the Alki zone, but I've heard that there's more elsewhere. So how many are up now? How many are going?
Well, how many are up now are approximately?
9, I believe.
About 9 cameras right now. There's going to be 30 cameras total, and this project is designed as a port security measure to monitor the waterways in and around Seattle. Mm-hmm. So the 30 cameras are going to go across the shoreline areas of the city. And what that means is all the way up from shoreline all the way down to Fauntleroy. And you can see you have the little red dots. They're kind of spaced out pretty far and wide. And the reason for that is it's not designed to be looking at every little bit. It's to provide situational awareness generally throughout the area so that we can monitor things that are happening on our waterways or coming into our port.
Right. So how were the 30 spots chosen?
Just to try to get overlapping views of the city, general views of the city, where activity level is. If you notice, there's more cameras down around the port area itself than there are. But we wanted to be able to make sure that we could look out past Alki and down to the south, and then up around Magnolia Bluff and to the north. We also have a little bit cutting through the locks and into Lake Union. Again, major shipping transportation corridor.
So basically, so tell me how it'll work, whether there are people assigned to watch them 24/7. Will you just be activating it when you know there's an incident or a suspicion or something's happening?
So the cameras are actually a small part of an overall system. The overall system is a wireless mesh network, and that's going to improve communication for first responders and other city departments within the city. And on that, a couple of the venues have cameras attached to it. So the cameras would be rolling 24 hours a day, but we will not be assigning someone to monitor the cameras 24 hours a day. That won't be their job. The idea is if there's an incident and first responders are responding into the venue, that they would be eventually able to tap into those computers and see it while they're en route. So they get situational awareness, they can decide, hey, we're going to need more or less. Probably the most common is there's a boat overturned or a kayaker or somebody in the water off Alki Point. So while they're en route or fire is en route, whether it's on land or on water, they'd be able to tap into the system and say, hey, we don't see a boat. Or maybe, yeah, we do see that there's a sail in the water and this is where we're going.
I watched the city council briefing from the committee back in May. It was mentioned that it sounded like there were a variety of agencies who will have access to tap into and to look at this, and those are?
Well, the idea is to share the information for the whole city, so the city would benefit from it. Yes, there is a Homeland Security nexus, obviously. However, the same benefit of watching the shoreline and the roadway along the shoreline and the waterways would benefit SDOT or the Seattle Fire Department or us. And so, yeah, we will be able to share that information with those agencies.
But will they have, for example, in their command centers or wherever, a place where they can literally tap into the X and X network? Okay, they can look at camera X just the same as someone at SPD would be able to? Or?
Yeah, that's the goal. There's a steering committee made up of these other city departments, and that final decision will rest with the steering committee, not with me alone. So the idea is that we come up with a city network that has a Homeland Security nexus, but still has an added benefit for the rest of the city.
Okay, and you mentioned SDOT, I know Seattle Fire, SPD, who else is involved then?
Well, in the end, we want to share it with the United States Coast Guard because they're one of our best partners on the waterways. They obviously have authority on the waterway. And so we would allow them to have access to the cameras too. Or that's at least what the steering committee has said so far.
So how would it basically then, then work? Is it controlled from, from a remote spot, or are you just be getting 4 views from each camera? Again, I know it's part of a larger system, but the cameras are the part that people are really interested in.
Well, and I'm okay with that, because monitoring privacy concerns and security is a pretty serious issue, and we take it pretty serious. So in this, I think we've come up with a pretty good plan to allow for security efforts, whether that's Homeland Security related or criminal enterprise, right? Or a crime that just happens down there, and if someone on Alki was to get their purse snatched and the cameras happen to be pointing that way and the investigators found some evidence on the video, they would be able to use that to either identify or exclude a subject and hopefully use that to go forward for a court prosecution. So the way the cameras would work is they'd be out there monitoring a generalized area, whatever the view is determined from that camera. There is an ability to pan, tilt, zoom them, but only a few people would have that capability. So the general officer on the street or the firefighter would just be able to view it, and then the steering group will have to determine who actually gets the ability to pan, tilt, zoom. But right now our plan is to keep that very, very controlled.
So that's a decision then that hasn't been made yet about how it's going to be controlled? Is it a dispatcher or or somebody else, a different new position?
Well, it's ongoing. Again, this was a very short timeline for the project, and we have some outlines, but it hasn't been finalized yet. So I can't comment on that because the steering group itself hasn't weighed in.
That was another thing I was going to ask you about. Is for example, as I mentioned, we saw that this was discussed in a council committee back in May, and then the full council took a vote a few days later. At least the basic sort of ordinance, it didn't say specifically there will be cameras in Alki.
Well, no, but we did say that they'd be up and down the shoreline, so we tried to give as much information as we could.
Right, yeah, no, I saw that, but I'm wondering, so the timeline since then, I'm trying, because what people are wondering is, why hadn't they heard anything more? And obviously that was technically public, but not a lot of people were paying attention. Yeah,
well, we haven't done a press conference, and it's just, there's a number of other issues going on. In terms of the implementation of the system, we are putting up wireless nodes throughout the affected area. This is a port grant, so I can only put them around the waterway. So downtown, they come in a little bit inland to allow for coverage for officers and firefighters responding. But the implementation has been since, well, let's see, it had to be done December 31st. And when was the grant award, do you remember?
The grant was awarded November 1st, 2011, but the contract with the vendor was assigned until May.
So the idea was, this was a very short timeline, so it has been moving pretty quickly.
So the cameras were all up by December 31st?
No, we got an extension of the grant period. So
yeah, because
hopefully the system will be completed March 31st.
And that's all 30 of the cameras that you mentioned, so
roughly 60 days.
Yeah.
In terms of putting them up. And is that truly when you think that they would be activated, or just they'll all be in place and then you
Well, it's difficult to get steering committee members who are doing other jobs to be able to coincide their calendar such that they can make a decision. Whether the system's up and active at that point will be dependent upon whether we have final decisions from the steering committee. If the decisions aren't finalized, then it won't be active yet.
Is the steering committee all people within city government, or?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it appointed by SPD, or?
Yep. They were selected by their own agents or department head or department members.
Does it have an official name?
Steering committee for the wireless network. No, I don't think so. I didn't give it a fancy name right now.
You just never know in terms of, minutes hiding out there somewhere under, whatever. Is there a city or another area of the United States that you know of that already is doing something like this that you guys consulted with or looked at, or is this the first of its kind?
This is the first of its kind that I'm aware of. I know some ports have cameras, but none have a system that provides this capability.
So I think you pretty much addressed the fact that that really this could be used for almost anything. It's port security, but if there is an incident going on, in Alki, sometimes in the summer, someone's being sought for a shooting or something like that, it could be summoned into. Sure,
there's no prohibitions on that. However, its first mission is obviously Homeland Security related.
Is there a time set by the security committee or anyone else how long the video that they're reporting will be?
Right now we have a draft policy, but the draft policy would record for 30 days. And if no video evidence has been recovered, then it would automatically override after 30 days.
But during that time, then it would be theoretically a public record. So, like
potentially, yes.
Yeah. Is it requiring as part of, I understand that, the grant was $5 million, 4.8 or so?
A little less than $5
Yeah.
million.
Does this bring additional personnel as well as the equipment?
Nope, this was all added within city departments and to the police department.
So people are undergoing training right now to
Not yet.
operate them?
No, the system's not up yet, so training hasn't begun yet.
So you have to wait for that. I had heard in somebody else's report on this that possibly there will be some public information coming out technically, not just through, people like us coming here and talking with you, but someone mentioned, I never know to trust, what my fellow journalists report, but meetings or community briefings, discuss it at the council again, or anything else?
Well, we don't have any currently proposed. We'll do an update for the council, I'm sure. And then we're doing a blotter post, and obviously people like yourselves are putting stuff out.
Okay, so there's not a community
I don't
forum
currently
or
have one,
anything.
no.
Okay. So nobody thought that really this would be the kind of thing. What I think probably some of the folks in our commenters and our readers are interested in is, if nobody really raised the issue that maybe before cameras turned up on poles, it'd be good to talk to the community just to say, you're going to be seeing our crews here in a few weeks and blah, blah, blah.
Well, actually, it probably would have been a good idea, but at least at the public safety meeting, we did discuss the fact that these cameras will have masking up, quite a bit of masking. So when they turn towards a residential area, the only thing you see is a black box or kind of like half a screen. So the idea is to be able to watch the shoreline and the waterways, not private residences. And we've taken great steps to make sure that that capability exists within the program. So before it goes active, we'll make sure that we take steps to do that.
There was something in the past day or so that some of the cameras were reoriented or something like that?
Well, and again, you have people working pretty hard trying to put up the cameras quickly, right. And evidently it was put up facing the wrong direction. And they went out in a day or so and they fixed it. And honestly, I expect that on a project of this magnitude. But again, we have checks and balances in place. And later on, if it wasn't caught now, it would have been caught later when they were positioning the camera.
A few of them are on poles that are actually on the inland side of the water. So I was just curious if there was a reason, choices. Did they have to be a specific kind of pole or something?
Well, I don't have a direct answer for that, but I'm assuming that it's because it was the best place to put the camera, or they had access, power, or whatever it was. So, but it has nothing to do with the residents in that regard. It has to do with being able to accomplish the hookup.
Anything else that you think that people should know, as you've heard, us and others, just come in and just ask some questions in recent days, something that you think that people might not quite get or probably should get?
No, actually, I'm okay with it. I like the fact that they're saying, hey, we have privacy concerns here, and I get that. And again, in our job, we have to balance privacy concerns against public safety concerns all the time. And before we even move forward with this project, when we started talking about it, we had to figure out a way to make sure that the cameras weren't used to watch somebody at their house or whatever. And I think with the masking capability of this system, that's going to be able to do that. And so we're going to take great steps to make sure that we mask everything that's reasonable. Now again, if we're looking down the road and looking at the shoreline for a great distance, and farther down the road you can see that there are homes there, etc., then that might be it, but it's not designed to look into people's residences at all. It's designed to monitor the waterways.
What's the main thing that you hope that this will be able to accomplish that you can't do until you have them in play?
What it's going to be able to do is allow us on the Homeland Security front to monitor those people that are out for nefarious acts, monitor their behaviors. Hopefully someone will call immediately, but if we get the call after the fact, we can go back and check it and say, hey, what's really going on here, and hopefully get information. There's a preventive aspect, as you already know. Cameras do have a preventive effect, not for every criminal out there, but for a number of them. And then, of course, there's the ability to use the same information, the video, for crimes that might occur. So if there's a purse snatch down on Alki, or a robbery, or a shooting or something, and we have a legal reason to go get it, we'll go back and get it, see if we can't use it for evidence, and then submit it for court.
Is there any time that the grant sunsets, or just these are now paid for and they'll be up in perpetuity for as long as they work?
Well, they'll be there for a while. The grant itself will be over. So they'll be up there until we determine that we don't want them up there any longer, or the city comes through and the steering committee makes a decision.
Do they have any out there technology like somebody was wondering about facial recognition, or I saw?
Well, there is facial recognition. We don't have it on this system, no.
Okay.
I mean, that technology exists. Yeah, no,
right.
It's not part of this, no.
But there was infrared potential was mentioned somewhere that I read.
I was going to say, well, if you read that, you read something I didn't, but.
Okay, that's why I'm
Not
asking.
that I'm aware of. We don't have any IR on it. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that was in the, I think, the House Organ article on the In Motion Technology website, in which a gentleman from the fire department was quoted, although it was not clear necessarily whether he was talking future or current, so.
Okay. I
Yeah.
know that.
Okay, well, that's good. That's why. So otherwise, basically, you mentioned that there would be wireless nodes without that didn't necessarily have cameras. That there's wireless spots and stuff. So that's just to further transmit radio signals, or
No, also data information, computer information.
Oh, okay.
Probably the best example is if I ended up having a heart attack down on the waterfront, or that's the most dense area, is fire could transport me with all the connections that they have and send that information to Harborview and never have it interrupted. So that's one of the areas. The other way is we have dead spots, and the nodes would be able to support that. Now, again, we don't have that capability right now, but as the technology in the cars improves, or the fire engines, whatever, then that's what we hope to be able to do.
so some infrastructure for the future.
Yeah, it's all about sharing data and information and making sure that they have the information to do a good job. So, Monty, you had something you wanted to pass on?
She was asking for other things to talk about. We were addressing with the fire department metro, using it for rapid ride.
Yeah, there's some discussion of Metro downtown using the system to send information for their rapid ride program that they have.
For like one bus away, or
Yeah. Mayor McKinn and Executive Council team did a press conference on December 11th talking about Third Avenue corridor improvements, and that would be using the same network.
Come on.
on the map there, what are the different spots? I see it looks like green or blue.
Oh, that's just connectivity, and we were able to string wire, what do they call it, fiber to make sure that we could send the information.
So the lines that don't have are the dots? The dots look like
Dots
the
are
cameras
just the
that I've
cameras,
seen.
yeah.
Yeah, and so those.
So green's fiber and red's not?
Red should be new fiber, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
then green's old fiber?
Yeah, existing fiber.
Okay, so that's not that there's not stuff coming to the, for example, down the middle of the peninsula, there's a line that doesn't have, that's something that already exists.
It either exists or it uses the wireless capability of the system to transmit the information.
So that's the one at Font right down there is
Way down there.
That's like that's probably about the ferry dock or so.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's because we've seen actually, no, I haven't seen the one on Alki Point. That one's off the main drag, so. Okay, I know it's late, so thanks.
Actually, no,
a bucket of info.
is there anything else I can help you with? I
Did you
mean,
have
I
anything?
apologize for being a little bit.
Not really, no.
Okay.
It's pretty straightforward.
It really is, it really is about security and safety, public safety, and again, we tried to mitigate the public safety concerns as much as we could.
But
So
just,
they're public areas.
So let's just clarify one thing. So you're looking kind of at Alki. And if it's just day after day after day of seagulls over 30 days, you're not. But if there's some sort of like beach brawl, you capture that on video.
Of a criminal nature.
But yeah, let's say let's just say it's guns, all sorts of things, is bad
Okay.
stuff.
Bad stuff.
Then will that piece of that video go into some other storage for your own purposes?
We would have to grab that piece of video, save it as evidence.
Okay.
And then-
So he goes through the standard evidence
Yeah,
chain.
yeah,
Okay.
protection there, so.
But somebody would have had to flag it before the 30 days were over, and it.
Somebody would have to go in and actually get the video, yeah. They can't flag it per se. We'd have to hear about the crime, or the date, time, et cetera. They'd have to go back and research that.
It being the recording system back here, is it transmitted over the air, or is it part of the whole setup?
The recording of it?
Yeah, the actual. I mean, wherever it's being recorded.
Oh, no, that wouldn't be transmitted over the wireless. It would come back to a central point.
Central.
Cool. No, I think that's all I got.
They should do it.